Nope is the third film by Jordan Peele, a director who is quickly achieving that rare feat of being able to sell a movie on his name alone. The trailer teased horror and science fiction, but revealed little else. So let's chase that mysterious cloud in the sky and see what Nope is all about. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Hello.
I thought you were going to say yup, or something,
yeah. I considered it, and then figured I'm beneath that.
You're beneath that?
Yeah.
No, it's beneath you. You're beneath that.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about horror film. It's that simple. We are catching up on a big 2022 release that we didn't get to, mainly because it released at different times. It was out in the US like a month and a half before the UK got it for some stupid reason. But we're here today to talk about Nope, which is Jordan Peele's third film, and we'll get into it. Yes, that's three. Very good, Tim. We'll start spoiler free as we always do, of course. Although we are quite late in getting to this, so I imagine a lot of you have already seen it. But we'll start spoiler free. We'll give you warning before we get to spoilers, and we'll get into it. And all I'll say premise-wise before we get to spoilers really is just there appears to be something in the sky, possibly a UFO, but it's spooky and creepy things are happening.
Very good.
That's basically what I'm going to say. I mean, I suppose I could say like the main characters of OJ and Emerald. Yes, I said OJ there. Don't like, very intentional choice, and we'll talk about maybe later why it's an intentional choice. But yes, Daniel Kaluuya's character is named OJ. Their father's played by Keith David, and he like has this like freak accident at the start of the movie where they're on their ranch, and he he not only rents out but also like goes with like his horses for like movie productions and commercials and things like that, and sort of like has the horses trained and deals with them on set and that sort of thing.
Hollywood animal wranglers.
Yeah, animal. That's wrangler's a good word. Yeah, and basically, like I think it's a coin that falls out the sky and just like hits him in the eye and kills him in this freak accident, and that's kind of your starting point for where the story goes. So you've got OJ and Emerald played by Keke Palmer, sort of trying to keep the business going of sorts after the fact. At least OJ is. Emerald's maybe kind of separate, but they kind of come together as the story goes on. But there's a few other characters that get introduced as well as we go, but that is the basic gist of it. So I guess I'll ask the question. Tim.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy Nope?
So, you want to know what I thought of the movie?
Yes.
I don't know. I thought the new year might be mixing things up a little bit.
What about the question was like unclear? Was there shades of grey? Was there?
Yeah, it was about 50 of them.
Was there a bit ambiguity in the question that I was unaware of?
You're being a little cheeky, let's be honest. No, I mean, this movie is fantastic. This is the third time that I've seen it, so I actually did manage to go out and see it in theaters, which I was very happy I did so. It's a very good movie to see on I don't know how big theater screens are, like 20 feet or whatever screen.
Why is that important? You could just set a big screen.
Yeah, it's some people have big screens in their house, so I don't want people to think I'm watching on like a 20-foot big screen in my house. Instead I was in a theater watching it on what was most likely a 20-foot screen. I don't know. So I was happy that I got to see it on the big screen. I'm sure I talked about it. I think I did have a little bit of an annoying theater experience, but I'm pretty sure I talked about it on one of the even more episodes of Scream. So go back and watch the one from July or August. I probably talked about it on. And then I watched it once with my wife, and then I watched it today before doing the podcast. I didn't have a problem watching this multiple times because I thought it's thoroughly good film. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what is there to say, about Jordan Peele at this point. He's he knows what he's doing. He's I enjoy his movies. And yeah, I mean, it's always just something about him that just really sucks you in. I like the characters. I think the actors that portray them all doing like a really good job, and he just has a way of shooting and telling the story that really sucks you in. I think there was like a little bit of talk about where this review would land, because some people might think it's a little bit more of a sci-fi film, but I think there's plenty of horror elements, and and again, can't really get too spoilery, but I would say that like some of the, I guess, kind of like the main crux of the film aside, that if you actually just took let's just say the Mr. Gordy parts of the film, I'd say it's like the scariest horror movie of the year. Like that stuff, is all terrifying. But yeah, I mean, there's so much of this that I like. I guess it's a little hard to talk about it without getting too spoilery. One of the things, like we talked about before, is how, it's nice when a movie is actually about something. And, while I think this is a fantastic, like, sci-fi horror film with like a really cool creature at the core of it, yeah, again, like all other Peele's movies, there's like layers to it. There's it's not just simply a fun creature flick. There's lots of stuff that you can pull from it, which we'll get into all of that. But yeah, I mean, huge thumbs up for me. I think the film's terrific.
Yeah, there was a bit of back and forth as to whether this was going to be on Streams or Ace during the summer. And honestly, I could still be convinced either way, to be fair. But we decided on Screams, so here it is. And
at the very least, it keeps it all nice and lined up, because we did the other two Peele movies.
As long as Jordan Peele doesn't start going more sci-fi, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So there's that.
If his next movie is like called Star Trek 14, like Spock's Revenge or something, then yeah, you guys will probably do it.
Although that would be a scary review for you to have to take part in, I think.
Oh no, I would not want to do that.
See, exactly. You're scared. Look at you chilling. You're shaking in your boots right now.
Oh yeah, just the idea of having to watch anything Star Trek related.
Oh, here we go. All right. Yeah, so that's just the first time I watched it. I hadn't seen it yet. So I went in and I tried to stay as cold on it as possible in terms of like knowing what was in it, because it felt, even just from the initial trailers, that it was kind of keeping things close to its chest.
Yeah, like the trailer doesn't really tell you much, like plot wise, and I think there's not a lot of people you can do this with, but I think Peele is enough of a name that you can kind of sell it on him alone. You don't need to be like, oh, here's what it's about,
He kind of shot to that status very quickly. Like Get Out just immediately made him a name like that. Like a Nolan, like a whoever, who you can just say, no, this is their movie. The fact that it's theirs makes it an event, and we can sell the movie on that alone. Which is cool. I'm all for more directors being able to do that, because it gives them more freedom just to make movies that they're interested in, rather than having to necessarily market it a certain way or have to be tied to a franchise or whatever. So
the only thing that's like annoying about that is like it does feel like there's a lot of people that want to come out and just kind of have the contrarian take, be like, well, he's not that good, and like actually this movie's not as hyped up as it should be. And I mean, if you don't like the movie, like that's totally fine, but there's some people that just sometimes it just sounds like they're getting off on not liking the big popular director or whatever.
They do that with anything. It could be a franchise, it can be a director, right, it could be whatever. Like it happens with everything. So no, I liked it a lot, and I think this movie, it wasn't exactly what I necessarily expected it to be, because it does kind of keep it close to the chest. So I think I just had like a basic notion in my head of what the sort of movie it was going to be. So very early on, it starts to hint at things, it starts to poke at things that I was like, oh, okay, we're doing something different here, which it shouldn't surprise me. But it kind of did in a weird way, because I think like I liked Us quite a bit. But one of my complaints,
I was gonna ask, because I wasn't. I know I've definitely I like Us a lot too, but I know I've definitely had conversations with people that weren't so hot on it. So yeah, I was gonna ask you if you remember like how you feel about that, 'cause I forget if that was one we disagreed on or not.
I was going to say, we did do a review, Tim. Like we talked about it in depth.
Go back and I know, but that was like what? How many years ago?
I don't know, 3 maybe, maybe 4 a push.
Yeah. No, mine's not as much of a steel trap as it used to be.
But no, I liked Us a lot. But one of my the things that I would have said about Us is that it felt kind of painfully obvious where it was going right from the start of the movie. In a way that I found the ending a little underwhelming as a result, because it was just exactly what I thought it was going to do pretty much from the start. This film, on the other hand, because it did kind of keep itself so secretive, and it didn't, I don't feel like it telegraphed something too strongly at the start, that it felt like I was unraveling what it was. And even once I sort of start to get the themes and I start to get what it was saying, it still kind of felt like it was offering me surprises, and I still wasn't sure how it was going to end or what its final sort of point was going to be. So I was pleased to kind of like go on the ride. So I think it's a better film than Us. And I might even like it a bit more than Get Out, which I think actually is controversial to most people, but I think I want to compare it to something, but I really can't without spoiling the movie, so I'm not going to. But I've got some other movies that I want to compare it to once we're in spoilers, just to sort of like tell you the type of movie it is, because it's actually really clear once you've seen the movie. There's like a very direct comparison you can make, say it's exactly this type of movie, but you can't say that without spoiling it. So
I might know what you're gonna say, but yeah, we'll get to that. I was kind of trying to think of like what my ranking would be, and I do think it is actually legitimately pretty tough, because I really do truly love all 3 of these movies. And yeah, I would. I think I like Us a little bit more than most people, but yeah, I probably would maybe put that towards the bottom. But like the degree of difference, like between like each movies is like it's very like small. It's not like, oh, this is a clear winner and then this is like the worst one by a mile. It's they're all very close to me, at least.
I think for me this one just appeals to me a little bit more in terms of the type of movie it is. But the other thing that I think is a bit less subjective, and I mean it's still subjective to a point, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit less subjective and I arguably a bit more objective, is I think visually this is the most spectacular or stunning film that he's made. There's some shots in this, and I know it had like an IMAX version with like the opened up ratio
yeah, that's what I saw it on.
Yeah, so like some of those moments are quite spectacular, and that actually plays into the themes of the films as well, actually, even just using that word. But some of the moments in this like visually stand out to me more than anything in his previous 2 films, and I think he had a new DP for this movie, someone that he hadn't used in the first 2, so I think that's also partially why he has a new sort of collaborator that is helping him make this like visual spectacle that the film is. On tops of having the themes and the layers that he typically does in these movies. If anything, like I wouldn't say they're that hidden in this. They're still fairly like close to the surface. But I would say with Us and Get Out, they're like they're not even subtext. Like the like what he's talking about, what the movie's saying is like it's screaming that at you practically. Especially in Get Out, and then Us still pretty. I think this one. It's not like super like hard to think about or get to. Although that said, though, I think there's multiple themes at play, and maybe a critique of the film could be that it's maybe a little too many things going on thematically. You could say that.
Yeah, I've heard people make that complaint, which I think is fair. To me, though, it's like, yeah, there's definitely like a lot of stuff in here, but it's all done so well that it's like I don't really care. Like, like I'll gladly take a slightly longer movie with some whatever tangents and stuff that that's as long as it's done like this well. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'm not really talking about subplots or tangents. I just mean like thematically, like does it get a bit muddy because it's like talking about too many things is really what I'm saying.
I got you.
But yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to talk about much without getting into spoilers. So I don't know how much left I really want to say in the spoiler-free section. All on to say that I think it's very thrilling at points. There's some stunning visuals. I do think it's relatively well paced. It's about 2 hours 10 minutes long. It's not too long, especially this year when I feel like there's so many movies that are coming out that are like 2.5 hours and up.
Very much so.
Yeah. So that's felt like nothing after some of those. But yeah, so I guess the other thing to mention is some of the other supporting cast. Stephen Yeun's got a fairly prominent role in the film.
It's very good.
Yeah. I really know Brandon Perea, but he's like the other main sort of actor in it. He plays
Angel, or
I thought it was Angel. I never actually heard it in the movie, to be honest, but I was wondering if it was Angel.
I think at one point like Emerald calls him Angel, but I
fair enough.
maybe she's mispronouncing it. I don't know. Well, of course, there's Mr. Gordy and I forget the name of the cinematographer or whatever guy at the end, but he's
Antlers.
Antlers. He's the bad guy from The Crow, I believe.
That's where you see. I remembered him as the guy from Alien Resurrection. He's like the captain of the ship.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, he did things in the 90s, and I don't know what he's been doing for the last 20 years, but here he popped up.
He's great though. He has a great voice. Like,
yeah. Also, I love how you brought up Gordy, who's a chimpanzee. It just without even mentioning that, or I mean, there is technically an actor listed because it's mocap, like like Andy Serkis in the Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah,
but
he's MVP of the movie for me. Most valuable primate.
I don't know why you say that. Oh. Why are you so giddy? Why are you in such a giddy mood tonight?
I don't know. Why are you being so cheeky?
I'm not being cheeky. This is not cheeky.
You're being a little cheeky.
Chicky's being mischievous. I'm not being mischievous.
I don't know. You're pulling some pranks earlier before the call.
What? I didn't know such thing. How dare you? All right, so full spoilers for Nope from this point on. You have been warned. So I guess the big twist of the movie that the marketing's kind of hiding is that, well, technically a UFO, it's actually a creature. It's not a ship. It is an alien entity. Well, we assume it's an alien entity. I mean, it could have come from somewhere on Earth, but it's that, we don't really get answers to that. But it looks like a classic UFO. Although, to be honest, see, whenever they're underneath it, it looked like the underneath of a cowboy hat to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Every single time it was coming down and we were underneath looking up, I was like, that looks like a cowboy hat. To the point where I was almost expecting a reveal where the camera sort of like, revealed the top of it at some point, and it was actually just going to be a big giant cowboy hat. It wasn't. It didn't do that, but it was something that was in my head.
Yeah. I guess I mean it would have kind of fit, I guess.
It would have fit, would it?
Yeah. Well, that's...
Who would it fit? Fucking Godzilla?
I didn't mean like that. I meant like it would fit like the locale that it's in, because there's Jupiter's claim or whatever. There's everyone's kind of dressed cowboyish, and so it would look similar.
What was that about Jupiter?
What is it, Jupiter's claim or whatever? Stephen Yeun's park or ranch or whatever you call it.
Oh, Jupe. Yeah, he's known for Jupe, which is a character he played as a kid, I assume.
Yeah, but that whole area is like kind of cowboy themed, so a cowboy hat would make sense. Well, that's what I was saying.
Why would that make sense that the alien entity in the sky would be themed appropriately to the people underneath?
I don't know, maybe it's trying to blend in. I mean, why can it look like a cloud?
It's a giant shape in the sky. It's all right. It's a cowboy hat. That makes sense here. If it looked like anything else, that would be weird. That would stick out. But a cowboy hat, that makes sense.
Hey, I mean, it obviously can change shape. It's not like it's that far out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, but I don't think it can just make any ship at once. I think it has stealth mode, which is just like a classic looking UFO, and then it has open, which is what you see towards the end, where it sort of spawns out into this kind of butterfly-esque shape.
Mm-hmm. So
I said S.
So just switch modes.
Yeah, it's just too. It's not a shapeshifter, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that it can shapeshift to anything it wants.
Well, then wait. Then how is it a cloud at some point?
It's not a cloud. It's just inside a cloud. It's like it's deploying a cloud around it, and it's just like it's inside the cloud.
Okay.
What did you think it was actually like?
I thought it was going into cloud mode.
Well,
I thought it had 3 modes.
Well, you're making myself doubt myself now. I don't think it literally becomes a vapor. I think it surrounds itself with the same type of, like, you know, gas or whatever that will look like a cloud to the eye.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what it's doing. Right. It's just pumping that out around it. It's like it's like cloaking itself in mist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it looks like a cloud.
That's a good explanation. Yeah.
Right. Oh, jeez. I'm going to have an aneurysm by the end of this review.
Hey, you're the one that brought everything up about talking about how it looked like a hat.
Yeah, it's a sly little anecdotal aside, that's all.
It was a little cheeky.
There's no cheekiness happening. The only cheeky one on this podcast is you.
Maybe.
So, right. So it's a giant creature that sucks first up horses and then eventually people to eat them. And we get shots from like inside, and we see like kind of its like digestion system, and basically the idea, like, this is some of the most spectacular moments of the film, is the Stephen Yeun's character. He's this, you know, so his backstory. I guess we're getting into all this now because it sets up this big bit in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. So there's glimpses throughout the film of this incident that happened in what turns out to be the 90s on a sitcom TV set. And in fact, the first thing we really see in the movie is a glimpse of this, which is a TV set, a studio, you know, where they're shooting like a multi-camera style comedy with a studio audience, but it's empty, and we get the glimpse of like a foot like sticking out as if someone's hurt, and the glimpse of a chimpanzee in the scene. And that's all we get early on, and we get kind of context for it a little bit later, when it turns out that Stephen Yeun's character was this child star of like a commercial or something, and that got him this TV show. He was the kid actor on this TV show. And it's infamous because when they were shooting an episode, the chimpanzee, Gordy, which the show was sort of based around, basically went savage during an episode and killed some of the actors. And we find out later that he was actually hiding in the set under a table, being scared for his life. And it kind of intercuts him telling this story like it's a piece of trivia, like, as he's showing them his memorabilia. Like, hey, you know, this is like my legacy, and I make money of this from this still. But when we cut back to the incident, like, he's terrified. He's under a table. He's like scared for his life. And I think the moment you were kind of hinting at earlier is that probably one of the scariest moments I've seen in a movie this year is the simple moment where Gordy the chimpanzee makes eye contact with with us, really, but with young Stephen Yeun under the table.
Yeah, but yeah, it looks like he's looking right at you. Yeah, this whole like sequence, is done so well. Like I think the CGI looks really good. Obviously, they're not using a real chimp. Like, it'd be so funny if like the whole point of it is like, oh yeah, you shouldn't like exploit animals because they can be very dangerous. But then they actually did use like a live chimp. That'd be dumb, but that'd be kind of funnily ironic. But no, obviously it's a CGI chimp, but I think it looks really good, especially like having the contrast of like him like wearing this very silly like birthday outfit, but he's just like kind of covered in blood, and just like you don't even really see him doing much of the carnage, but like you see so much of the aftermath and stuff and like that it's all just really unsettling. And especially kind of like how quiet it is, because like it's supposed to be, yeah, like that typical 90s like three camera sitcom, and like you're supposed to have like a live audience with a lot of energy and laughing, and that's kind of like what you hear in the beginning of the movies. Like you kind of hear like some like opening jokes and audience laughter at the beginning, but then when they show the full scene, it's just like very still and quiet. And yeah, it's super unsettling. And then like you basically see like like Gordy like eating the face of like the older sister. Like you don't actually see it, but you see him like kind of
it's like
doing that, and
she's like behind the couch, and we sort of see her feet sticking, or the mum's feet are sticking out, and you see the chimp sort of like banging on presumably someone's head, or like you say, maybe eating someone. So you get like glimpses of this throughout, but then there's a section in the middle though where you get like the full, like sort of, well, not the full, but you get like a good big chunk of it, and there's a great shot where it sort of comes in through the back of the soundstage. And it's just this quiet shot sort of going up and coming around and looking at the TV set that this is happening on. And then, it's just this one big shot, and it looks really cool, and it feels really suspenseful. You feel kind of the horror of the situation, and young Ricky, Stephen Yeun's character, who's like hiding under the table, he's looking out, and we get a lot of POV shots of his like point of view looking out. And I think very notably, because of where he's looking, we're looking at the empty seats, the empty like stadium seating for the crowd. So they're empty, and it's kind of eerie, and the chimp's moving around, and he chases like the dad actor who looked like Martin Mull but was not Martin Mull. It looked like him, but it wasn't him. But he chased him out through a door, and he came back in, and the chimp's got blood all over his like hands and his face. And there's a moment where you're going, oh god, I hope he doesn't notice him. And then there's just a moment where the chimp just sort of looks down and looks right at the camera as if, oh shit, he's noticed them. He's noticed us watching. And he comes over, and he actually goes to fist pump, because that's something he's been trained to do, is sort of like put the knuckle out. And he gets shot just as the kid's about to make contact with his fist, in a sort of friendly manner. He gets shot. Whoever's coming to like the police, the animal control, whoever's coming to like deal with the situation that the chimpanzees went crazy and started killing people, comes in and shoots them. And
the only thing that's like that's maybe like a tad unbelievable is that like I'm like in reality they probably would have had like a bunch of like animal trainers with like dart guns or something like on set, but I mean, who cares, whatever.
Sure. I mean, I don't know, maybe you could, because part of the film is kind of the hubris of like doing stuff like this and chasing a spectacle, which is why I specifically pointed out the his point of view looking out was at the empty seats. And the idea of the audience, there's meant to be an audience for this. This was something that was done for entertainment's sake, and that's like one of the main themes that runs throughout this. And part of why, because this subplot is fairly separate from most of the main characters. It's only for this character, and we sort of hint at it throughout. And then this character meets his demise like halfway or so throughout the film, and that's kind of it's over. But the reason why it's there and the reason why it's so important is because one of the key themes of this film is the idea of not only chasing spectacle, but trying to capture it. And you could argue this is maybe a bit like about social media and the try to go viral with the one cool crazy thing that will make you famous or whatever. But it felt like to me, because Jupe or Ricky, that character as a kid surviving this, instead of like seeing this as this horrific experience that he should like maybe have learned some lessons from about the sort of things he gets involved in, he instead lives off of this sort of period of his life until adulthood, where he's got this shitty little like cowboy theme park that he runs and does like shows with them with horses and whatever else, and he's got all this memorabilia. He charges people to come and see it, or to spend the night, as he points out. There's a couple that wanted to spend the night in his memorabilia room. Bit weird, but if that's your kink and he's willing to offer it, why not, I suppose. But you've got all these things, and then ultimately he meets his demise, like intentionally trying to put on a show with the UFO. We don't really know until this point that he knows about the UFO, but it turns out he does, and he's actually been charging tickets to sort of like goad it out to eat horses in front of people, and then ultimately this gets him and all of his audience and his wife and kids killed. And it's like, okay, you learn nothing, and you've been chasing this fame, you've been chasing more success your entire life, and you're willing to go after this, effectively an animal, to do it. And I think a lot of this movie is about chasing of spectacle, chasing of dangerous spectacle, but then glorifying it and enjoying in it. And I think there's almost like a meta quality to the film where we're enjoying the spectacle of this big UFO monster chasing people down. But part of the point of the movie is the idea that we kind of, we do have this thirst for that, and we're looking for it. And we'll get into this more in a bit, because I think all the characters have a different relationship to this in the movie. But I felt it was important to explain all this part for Ricky /Dupe / Stephen Yeun's character, because that's this thing that's been building up throughout the film, and then builds up to this moment where we get kind of our basically. So the movie I wanted to compare this to was Jaws, right? This movie is Jaws, and this scene where Stephen Yeun tries to put on a show, and then the UFO thing comes out and just sucks everyone up and eats them, basically. This is the equivalent, kind of, not exactly, but it's the equivalent to the scene in Jaws where no one's really believing anything's going on, but then there's a scene where people actually start dying and they'll have to run onto the beach, That was kind of the midpoint of Jaws, where shit hits the fan. Oh shit, this is really serious now. Same thing kind of here with this. This is the scene where it's like, oh, this is not just a group of characters who think they've seen a UFO and are trying to like capture it on film, which is kind of fun, and it's kind of, it's almost a bit Close Encounters era, but other Steven Spielberg movies. But this is where it's like, oh shit, no, this thing is ultra dangerous and might suck us, because up until this point it's only eaten a couple of horses. It's not really went after human beings. You assume it's behind the death of the father, but not by like intention. They just it spat out some coins and some keys and shit when it ate someone else, and that killed the dad by accident, but it didn't intentionally kill him.
And I think at first you only really see it like, kind of like sucking up the horses and stuff. So like if you're still thinking that it's like a ship or something, you could reasonably be thinking that like, oh, maybe they're just aliens abducting it and doing something with it on board the ship or something. Like you don't realize it's like, oh no, it's sucking it up to eat. Oh
yeah, because when it sucks up this crowd, we get all these like really like terrifying shots inside its digestive system, where they're all still alive.
Scenes,
and that's all really good. And that's the reveal. That's the reveal that it's a living thing. It's not just a ship with things inside it. It is mentioned before that, because OJ thinks that, like he says, no, I don't think it's a ship because it's too quiet, like the way it moves. And I do love the shots you get before this, where it's like you literally see it go like behind one cloud to behind another cloud. So it's like these like little creepy scenes of it just moving silently in the sky, and it does this thing where it sort of sneaks up on people, much like a shark in Jaws or similar kind of things. All that stuff is cool. But the reason why I set all this up is because the scene of it digesting the people is really good, but even more than that is that they're still in there screaming when it's moving around for the next couple of minutes. You can still hear the people screaming, and it's not until it's above the house and it starts basically just kind of like getting rid of all the blood of the people it's just killed. And it's like, so you get this glorious shot of the house on the ranch where it's pouring a rain, but because the ship / monster is above the house, you can see like kind of where the rain's coming down off the edges of this ship, because it's sort of like it's like a big umbrella effectively, right? But then inside underneath the ship where the house is, you've got a separate rainfall of blood coming from the ass of the ship, basically. And that visual was like I was
awesome.
I was enjoying the movie up until that point, but that was the moment where, okay, you know what, I get this movie now. I get what's special about this now, and this is very effective. This is kind of horrific, and it's like, we're doing Jaws, but it's a big flying thing in the sky instead of a shark in the water, and that's fun. I think just on like a movie going level, it's just a fun like monster movie with the chase and the the sneaking about and the threat and the danger.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like it's doing a lot of unique things where like I mean, maybe it's been done before, but like just stuff like the idea of the ship actually being the creature. It's like, oh, like I think that's a pretty novel idea that seemed pretty new to me. And then just the way they visually represented a lot of stuff, like the inside of its digestive system, it's just such a creepy, eerie, like it feels like so claustrophobic, and like it kind of looks like what I imagine like the inside of those like inflatable tube men that like they use like later on in the movie. Like it almost kind of reminds me of that. Like it's a lot of like very like flappy like sheets or something. It feels like, but yeah, it just looks so cool. And yeah, I don't know. Like it seemed like just like a very like interesting like fresh take on like aliens and UFOs that I don't know I hadn't really seen before, which is cool because that's always something I've been really interested in, and I feel like that was a big thing in the '90s. But you don't really see like too like I feel like the kind of the UFO and alien hysteria like has never really recovered from like the height of the '90s where you had so many like sleazy like UFO sightings shows and like alien autopsies and stuff. But I miss that stuff. I like these aliens.
Yeah, I've certainly never seen something where it really genuinely looks like a ship, but then turns out to not be a ship. At least off the top of my head, I can't think of any examples of that. I can maybe like think of, like it's a giant monster movie, but when you get like maybe like the secondhand accounts early on where you're not really sure what it is yet, maybe some of the witnesses like mistake it for a ship and they'll say, but then it turns out to be like some dragon looking thing or whatever it may be. But that's definitely felt a little bit more specifically unique, at least to me. I don't think I've encountered this specific idea of tricking us into thinking it looks like a UFO, because it does look like a UFO. It's like a classic flying saucer, and then it turns out no, it's actually a living thing that's eating. And where did it come from? Who knows? But where did it go? Something Cotton Eye Joe. So no, okay.
I'm familiar with the song. I didn't know that's where you're going.
I didn't intend to when I started it, but then I realized I could I could take this path, and I did. So bite me basically. So no, like the first half, because I think it's probably easier to talk about it in two halves, because up until this point it is very much like OJ sees something move in the sky. I think Emerald maybe sees a little bit too, and there's this idea of like, if we can like film this, then this could be our ticket to like some sort of fame and fortune. And particularly from Emerald, and Emerald right from the start of the film is clearly one who is chasing success in that way.
She's a bit more ambitious, and like it seems like OJ just kind of wants to run the business like the way his dad is. Like seems like they're both kind of living in like their dad's shadow, who seem to be kind of like the big kind of showman, like leader of the business or whatever. And then
I probably mentioned, just in case I didn't, Keith David plays the dad in the opening.
Fantastic. Yeah. And anytime you can get Keith David, you gotta get Keith David.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love Keith David. I think right from the get-go, she shows up late to this job early on, and OJ is very uncomfortable. He's clearly not good at doing the talking with the big wigs and the execs and the other people on set. It feels like he's doing this out of obligation because he believes in his father's legacy, but he's not actually a showman, and he doesn't actually necessarily want fame and fortune. He's not chasing spectacle. Whereas the sister Emerald kind of is. She mentions she's doing like singing, she's acting, she's directing, like she's basically dipping her
she mentions like craft services.
Yeah.
She's like
she's dipping her toes and her fingers in all the pies in the hope that one of them's going to be the success, that one of them's going to be what catapults her. So when they get an idea of like, oh, maybe we can capture this on film, they're like, well, yeah, but you get tons of shitty clips or photos or whatever of aliens, and you see them on TV shows and you see them on the internet. It has to be proof. It has to be something that's unquestionably real. That this is proof that a UFO exists. Like all that part of the movie, and they sort of befriend Angel, who works at the at Fry's Electronics, who comes out to install the stuff, kind of gets that they're doing something about UFOs, and then kind of illegally also watches some of the feed of their cameras looking at the sky. And gets involved basically more and more as it goes on. But them try to catch stuff on the camera, and this idea, everyone remembers the first poster of this movie, which is just a cloud with the bunting come out of it, which is and for people who don't know what bunting is, it's just all the little flags on a string that you get at fairs and maybe like a used car like place. But everyone remembers that cloud with that coming out of it. And the way it actually happens in the movie is that Emerald steals like a model horse or a horse statue with Bunton on it from the theme park, and basically leaves it out as as bait or something. And sure enough, the UFO takes it and doesn't digest it properly because it's not a real animal. And for a while, not the whole movie, but for a while, has this tail coming down to kind of indicate, and that's why because it's like hiding in a cloud all the time, you get this like cloud with the Bunton coming out of it, and that's the visual, and it's like, and it very much is the fin. It's the Jaws, it's the shark fin from Jaws. A couple of times in this movie, it doesn't overdo it, but it definitely made me think of it the few times that they used it as a a device to like set up things. So yeah. So the first half's good fun because of that. Like them trying to capture this and look in for it. And Angel's even a character who's chasing spectacle in a different way. He mentions he got dumped by his girlfriend, who is got a pilot at the CW. So this idea that he resents the fact that he was dumped because she's went off to chase fame. So he kind of wants to chase fame in his own way and be a part of this. He wants to be a part of that. And the other thing we have to mention is the family kind of backstory as well, which was in I think the second trailer had this stuff in it as well. But it's this idea that their great grandfather was the horse rider in the first ever piece of footage to test the camera, which was a man riding on a horse. And this is something that is brought up by them in the film, and it's kind of like their company's calling card of like, hey, we have this legacy to Hollywood. So much like how Ricky is clinging to his like child stardom with the TV show with Gordy and whatever else he did as a kid, this family's kind of clinging to this legacy of like this first thing way back at the dawn of filmmaking. This was the first time, the first spectacle that was ever recorded was just simply someone riding the horse. But at the time, it was like the idea that you could, get footage of that, even though it was only 2 seconds. It was something, right? So they're kind of chasing that dream to be the first to do this now. Yeah,
no, it is like a cool like a little piece of history for the family, and then it's nice then to see them had that little speech about it, and it's kind of cool to see pretty much everyone in the family like gives their own version of it. Like OJ tries saying it, but obviously he's not really a showman, like, so you can't really like get it out that correctly. And then Emerald kind of has like her version of it, and then like later on you kind of hear like an old tape where like the dad is saying it, so it was cool.
Yeah, because I think like it sets up that OJ's not really chasing spectacle. Emerald is, because mainly for money. Angel kind of doesn't like his job and his status and wants to feel more important. And then we introduce Antlers, who was the director of the commercial at the start, who then gets sort of roped in. I say roped in. He very willingly becomes involved when he starts to believe that there is some sort of UFO to film, because he wants to get the impossible shot. He wants to be the cinematographer who captures this special film. And we see him at his place, like watching footage of just like various like animals and insects like killing each other, and like he's clearly into doing extreme nature stuff that no one else could get. Like no one else could capture this.
And this is like very much where like the Jaws comparison like is just really in your face now. It's like, oh, this is Quint. Like this is
kinda,
very much the Quint character.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think thematically this one's a bit more villainous than Quint, and in the sense that what he's doing in this feels a bit more exploitational, or exploitive, I guess is the word. But because I mean, he does all this, like he gets all these footage of all these different animals. I don't know. I saw this as kind of villainous. I saw him as kind of a soulless person.
Interesting. I didn't really get that from him. To me, it just seemed like he's just like, after that like amazing shot, like he just wants to record this stuff.
I'm not saying he's evil per se, but like the movie, he gets his comeuppance, he dies because he's not willing to let it go. Like I think the movie gives him his comeuppance.
But that doesn't, to me, that doesn't seem like an evil thing though. Like he just wants that shot.
I mean, not necessarily evil. That specifically itself's not evil, but like the idea that he, not so much that capturing like actual like moments of nature is a problem necessarily, but if he in any way is manipulating the events to get the animals into these positions, which they were seeing, then that's kind of evil.
Well, I mean the you're talking about like chasing spectacle and stuff, which I think in a way you can also very much see it as you're trying to exploit nature, which there's tons of examples in the movie between Mr. Gordy and even like using the horses, and then they're trying to exploit this kind of unknown creature for I guess technically they're selfish reasons or whatever.
Well, no, but not OJ. OJ is the one that isn't selfish though.
Right, yeah.
But I think that's important because OJ seems to care more about the horses at the start than he does about like he needs the money, he needs to actually earn a living, but he's not like really into it. He's constantly concerned about the horse. He's constantly saying, "Please don't do this to the horse." Like he cares about them. And I think that's because there was a moment. So when they're coming up with their plan, when everyone's sort of on board, and it's like, okay, we have to try and do this because the night before, like after the whole rain of blood thing, they all kind of flee, and like after the aliens left and they wake up in the morning, they sort of slowly kind of sneak up to like Angel's van so they can just get out of there. But they decide to ultimately go back and try and capture footage of it for all these reasons. But also maybe to save the world if this is like a dangerous alien that's going to keep killing people and all these reasons. But the filmmaker comes in just because he wants the shot. He's not doing this to help them. He's doing this because he just wants the fame and whatever. And of course there's other examples of this. There's the random motorcyclist with the silver chrome helmet.
The TMZ guy or whatever.
Yeah, was that just an assumption on their part, or was it actually like?
I don't know. I guess so, but I kind of go with it because they seem. Even if it's not TMZ, they're right in the sense that it's something of that nature. It's some sleazy journalist photographer who's trying to get the scoop here because they've heard things are going on. And it also gets his comeuppance, might I add. Yeah. For the way. So. But because there's a moment where I almost like questioned. I was like, wait, are they making all these characters unlikable to me? Because there's a moment when they're discussing their plan and they've got the map out and they're using the Monopoly pieces to sort of like say where they're going to be going, and OJ says something to the effect of, he's talking about the animal and how. It's got spirit, it's got personality, but like an animal's spirit can always be broken. And I almost disliked him in that moment because I'm like, well, wait a minute now. There's no way you can talk about breaking someone's spirit or an animal's spirit without sounding like the villain, because that inherently is not something that I'm going to like you for. That's like a very inhumane thing to do to anything. So. I was like, okay, like, are we setting up some sort of like a sort of downbeat theme here? But then I was thinking about it more, and I was thinking about specifically with the character of OJ, is that OJ, I think, ultimately survives, and ultimately, when he's talking about breaking the animal spirit, he's only talking about it in the sense of gaining control because he's someone who works with animals. He's like I've said the whole time, he's not chasing the spectacle. He's not doing this because he wants to, capture footage of it. That's his sister's dream, kind of. I mean, obviously he said yes to it. He's going along with it because he does need the money, but that's not ultimately what he cares about or what he's going for. This becomes about taming an animal that's hurting people, and that's very much the type of thing that he does. He keeps the horses calm. That's not to say that I think that he's growing attached to it or cares about it in the same way that he does care about the horses, but I feel like from him it's coming more from an animal handler perspective as opposed to like we have to exploit this thing for rich. And it's the same thing because like I said, so the director, the cinematographer dude, Antlers, who brings like because one of the plot points of the movie is that all of the electricity always stops working underneath this thing, so he brings like a camera that's you just spin it yourself. It's no electrical equipment at all. Oh, it's got big IMAX reels on it. I didn't notice. There was an IMAX symbol slapped on it. Maybe they got a discount for the IMAX camera to shoot the movie by doing some product placement. I don't know. But he dies because he
runs off to get more of a shot. I think he even says to Angel, "You don't deserve the big shot. You don't deserve the special moment," or something like that, as he's running off. So he goes away, tries to get his shot, and dies. He gets sucked up into the thing. He even gets some of the footage of his camera as he gets sucked up into the alien. Whereas Angel, on the other hand, he chooses not to save the footage of the cameras that he's next to, and instead chooses to save his life instead. You know, he ends up sort of realizing that if he wraps himself in barbed wire and the tarp that he's kind of fallen into, that the thing won't be able to eat him and digest him. So he's able to save his life over the footage. He makes a choice for himself rather than chasing the fame or the spectacle. So, you know, I think the movie is very much doing a thing where certain characters are getting comeuppance, and there's arcs for characters who, you know, I think Emerald ultimately does survive and gets kind of like a photograph of the thing. I saw someone say this online. I can't take credit for it, but she, you know, obviously they refer to the money shot a couple of times. She gets a photo of it using like the coin slot like camera in the theme park. Yeah, that's just, you know, up the way, and so, you know, it's literally like money shot. Like she's spending money to get the shot. I don't know. Maybe that's too cute. But I think she ultimately earns living though in the movie, because when her brother OJ is willing to sacrifice himself for her, because, you know, we get this big scene, they've got this big plan where they've got all the inflatable men that kind of like, you know, blow in the wind, connected to car batteries, all out spread across the ranch so they can tell where the UFO is, because they'll start, you know, because the electricity in the batteries will die when this UFO is over them. So we get this big sequence, and I love this shit. I love them come up with a plan. I love that there's rules that have been established that they're adhering to, that they're using to like tell, is it here, is it there, so on and so on. Admittedly, the plan falls apart pretty quickly once things get going, but that's, you know, neither here nor there. So, but there's a big moment where OJ's on a horse, and he's been telling us all movie, like, you know, don't make eye contact, because once you make eye contact with most animals, that's when you get their attention, and that's where, if they're going to be dangerous, they will. And that's what made the Gordy, the chimpanzees bit so scary, is like that had already been established at that point. So when he looked at us, it's like, oh shit, it felt like a big deal. And then here, you know, at this point, the UFO aliens opened up, and it's got this big sort of butterfly kind of thing that it's now looking like. He makes the choice to make eye contact so that his sister can get away on the biker's bike, because the biker's dead. He actually has quite a funny death where, because he's got an electric bike, it just stops working when he's going really fast, so he just kind of
just
flies off.
Flies.
That was pretty funny. It's not without some moments of humor, I'll say that.
Oh no, yeah, I think there's like plenty of laughs in the movie, and you know, even though a lot of stuff we're describing sounds very, you know, like dark and grim, but it is actually very you know, a lot of funny stuff. Yeah, like even when, you know, that biker guy is like on the ground and like OJ's trying to come over and save him, like, you know, the biker's like, you know, his the first thing he's saying is like, oh, like, you know, where's my camera, can you film me, like make sure to film this, like, you know, like that. Even when he's like about to, you know, be sucked up, like he's still all concerned about it.
The very first thing he says to him is, why aren't you filming? I think that's the very first thing he says to him. Which again is this idea of like we're all willing to go to have that moment of like spectacle caught on camera so we can use it for our own gain. Like that's like reiterated over and over again. So anyway, so we get back to Emerald, like, and her, like, so OJ willing to, because OJ and Emerald, I think at the start of the film, are quite distant from each other. They feel like they're not really that friendly with each other. They're brother and sister, but they don't really feel like they're close. And then over the course of the movie, that kind of, you know, their relationship progresses. It feels like they're getting closer.
And it's actually one thing I kind of enjoyed, because I think they're both you know, great actors, and I really like these characters, and it was fun to kind of see them, yeah, like bonding a little bit and, you know, getting to know them throughout the movie. Yeah,
and here he's like willing to sacrifice himself to save her, and I think this moment for her as a character is like, maybe, you know, because OJ doesn't feel like a character who's really good at expressing himself. You know, he's very quiet a lot of the time. He's very kind of, you know, like there's moments early on when he's with other people that's quite cringy because it's kind of just awkward because he's too uncomfortable to say anything. He's too uncomfortable to even just speak up and give like safety directions. Never mind actually open up emotionally to anyone.
That opening scene with him, at the like studio with the horse before his sister gets there is like. It honestly it's kind of like the hardest thing to watch in the movie just because like you said it is so cringy, and there's like so much going on that it's like you know something bad is gonna happen, especially like when they really start getting into the horse's face and you just like want to be like like I know it's like hard for him, but you just really want him to like kind of speak up for himself.
And if anything, like she's so confident when she comes in making this big like sales pitch speech, which has obviously been rehearsed. It's almost cringy in the opposite direction, where it's like it's like you go from someone who's too awkwardly quiet to someone who's too confident and too like this feels like a little bit cringy on the other side. But like I think this moment is like this genuine, like, you know, him willing to sacrifice himself for her and seemingly doing so. Obviously we find out right in the last moment that he has survived, that he got away, and that's because as far as the movie's logic goes, and when I talk about the movie's logic and earning survival, like, we're kind of like, it's almost like a slasher movie rule where certain people deserve to live, certain people deserve to die in the context of the movie, right? As far as the movie's rules go. And I think she ultimately has felt this like connection to her brother here, which changes kind of her motivation after this. I think her motivation in the final scenes where she's on the bike and she drives down to the theme park area and is like intentionally kind of like luring it by like driving through the police tape that's there because it's a crime scene now because all these people like disappeared. And
I really like this scene. I especially love when she does like the little motorcycle slide like from Akira, which is really cool.
Akira, the animation. I don't. How dare you? But you know,
it's a famous.
I know. But she's got the police.
Which Jordan Peele was actually supposed to direct the live action version for a while, so I wasn't sure if that was like a nod to that, but.
Maybe, yeah. But she's got this police tape like round her, right? She's driven through it, so she's sort of, and this is a constant thing, is that they kind of lure it multiple times with having, you know, either the button, the flags, or something that dangles from something as a lure to sort of make it follow someone. And she ends up, you know, going over to the camera that's aiming up from the well, and taking some photos of it after she releases the big balloon. It's a big like balloon of like you know, Jupe's like child character. It's like a balloon of that, and it's, you know, it's one of these big hot air balloon things, and it goes into the sky and ultimately actually kills the monster, and it kind of explodes when it tries to eat this big, you know, helium filled balloon, which is kind of a spectacular thing because it looks like a cloud explodes when it happens. It's quite cool.
I really like the I think I saw some people like complaining about it, but I actually really like when it's transforming, like at the end here. I don't know, like it's just like a very interesting, like unique like visual for it. Like it's I can't even really like describe it, you know, because it's like it does look very alien. Like it's not like there's like, you know, a lot of creatures like that look like that on Earth, but yeah, like the way it starts like transforming and changing towards the end here, I just thought was really cool.
Yeah, I said butterfly like because it's symmetrical, but I mean,
yeah,
and it's got, you know, kind of you know, it's not quite wings, but it's kind of goes wide at the sides. Like, you know, it's the best I can think of to sort of like paint a visual, but it's, yeah, it is very unique, and that's cool. But you know, I think her motivation here to get proof of it existing is more about just proving it exists, you know, rather than the spectacle. Although she still kind of gets that effectively as a reward. She gets the photographs at the ending, which is cool. So it's you know, it's got some big moments. It's got all these things that build up to it. You know, some of the creepier moments earlier on, which are really cool, is basically, we may have seen it a couple of times, but it's Angel who comes in and says, look, and he's like basically found evidence that there's a cloud that's not moving, and that's like, it's like, oh, it's sitting there all the time, like all day, every day, it's sitting right there, and it just looks like a cloud, and we just can't tell that it's there. Like that's that's really, that's a fun little set. It's a fun idea. And then later on, it's kind of like, once you know, it's okay. All right, so there's some element of proof here. At least in the sense that like they all just know without a shadow of a doubt it's there now, and they believe it, and there's no ambiguity to them. And because of that, you can get behind them when they start forming plans, and it's like, okay, we have to try and do this, and we have to try and figure out a way to trap it. And it feels so dangerous after the whole, like, the crowd of people have been eaten and the blood's come pouring down the house. At that point, it feels so, like, how can you possibly take this on? How can you possibly feel this? So you almost do kind of like get kind of like an F yeah kind of moment rooting for them when he's like, no, we're going to do this. And they all kind of one by one decide they're going to join in, because at first it's just OJ and the cinematographer dude who are like, yeah, I'm going to be up here with the camera and I'm going to be here doing this. And then the other two come along and say, okay, I'm going to be here then, and I'll be here. And they all kind of like sign up one by one to take part in this.
It's really fun, like you were saying before. Like, I like that, like, you kind of get rules around this creature. Like, you don't fully understand it, but you do know some of the dangers of it and some of the limitations you have around it. So it makes it really fun when they are devising this plan to, get these workarounds and to be able to capture it. And and that's all really fun. And I do like that it, like, you don't really think about it at the start of the movie, but then by the end it kind of becomes like a movie about making movies, like in a funny way, which I thought is like kind of interesting. And I was like, when they do that,
well, it's kind of it's the meta thing. It's it's because it's kind of criticizing to a point the idea of us chasing spectacle, even at the expense of our safety. And like, this horrific thing happens to young Stephen Yeun, but he doesn't really learn from it. He instead chases it and sort of uses it as like a currency, effectively, for the rest of his life.
Yeah, like, one of the things I think is like really kind of like darkly funny and like, interesting is when they juxtapose those scenes of how violent and horrific like Gordy is, but then when they just cut back to Stephen Yeun's character, and he's like kind of like smiling, like almost thinking, like he's like thinking back about it like fondly. And it's kind of like another way of another instance of having to like exploit something. Like, he's basically exploiting his childhood trauma to kind of have this like career, because really that would mess up anyone for life.
There's a really stark cut when he's telling them the story, or part of it anyway, in the memorabilia room. It's not when we see the full thing, that's not until later, but there's a quick cut to him being scared under the table as a kid and how horrifying it looks, and then it cuts back to him just smiling and joking about it, and there's like it shows you the difference.
Yeah, and like when he first tells them about it, he doesn't actually tell them like about what happened. Instead, he tells them about like what Saturday Night Live said about it. Like, he's describing the sketch that Saturday Night Live did, instead of actually being like, oh no, it was horrific. He's like, oh yeah, they did such a good job of spoofing it. Like, that's like so funny, like, but also like kind of dark to think.
In fact, that's actually like, that's one of the details as well, is when he's doing the show that gets like him and all the crowd killed, the sister from the TV show is in the crowd, and she's got like a veil over her face. She's wearing a t-shirt with her child image on it, right? To show people know it's her. But when you actually get a glimpse of her face, like, her face is all, been chewed up and scarred, and she's like missing her lips and stuff, so she's still kind of like living off the fame as well and what's happened to her, despite the fact that it did this to her. And at one point Stephen Yeun even says, and hey, my sister from childhood's over there, my first crush, I had a crush on her when we worked together. And it all just feels a little, there's this like Hollywood sleaze like element to it, where like everyone's trying to like make it and prove that they've got. Do you know what the weirdest thing that I think this compares to in a weird way? A companion piece. This kind of feels like a more mainstream, accessible version of the Neon Demon.
Okay. All right, I'll need you to explain that a little bit. Mostly because I don't remember much of the movie. But
well, that movie's about people coming to LA to be models, and how they're willing to like sort of turn into monsters to try and take it, and losing their humanity to do so. And it's all kind of like vapid and surface level. Like, definitely, if one of your themes in a movie is the losing your soul to chase the dream of being rich and famous, and especially in the entertainment sector in Hollywood, then I think this fits into that.
Sure.
I don't want to call it a subgenre, but
yeah,
there's definitely a number of movies and stuff that kind of fit into that, and this definitely does. And I think the idea that it's very comparable to Jaws, which many people call the first blockbuster.
right.
And I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, there's like, on Collector's Cut, we just did like 70s disaster movies, and like Poseidon Adventure that came out in 1972. That's definitely a blockbuster. They didn't use the term yet, but that's what it is. It's a summer blockbuster. It just wasn't a thing yet, But Jaws is the original summer blockbuster. That's what people kind of look at as coining that term and created that idea. So the idea this movie compares to that, and it's about chasing your big thing. It's about chasing the dream of Hollywood. Also, kind of feels perfect as a pair, as a marriage between two ideas.
And you know where the term blockbuster comes from, right?
I don't know if this is going to be a real fact or a joke, but do enlighten me.
Well, no, it'd literally be like the line to see the movie was so long it would go around the block.
Ah.
So, but I feel like basically that just means it's a really popular movie, which there are really popular movies before Jaws, but I'm sure it's like one like snappy newspaper or something coined that term and like took a photo or something.
Oh, of course, yeah. I actually didn't know that. That's why it was called a blockbuster. Mainly because we don't call streets blocks in the UK, so it never occurred to me.
I probably heard that on like when I worked at Blockbuster. I'm sure they had that on like one of the preview TVs that they must have said that fact at some point.
Although notably, we did have Blockbuster the store, but that's not anymore, obviously. But
yeah. What else did I want to say? And so I'll talk about chimps for a quick second.
Sure.
Here's another fun fact though, because I don't know if you know like how like dangerous like chimps really are, but like they are extremely vicious, and so like whenever you see because I do think it is kind of funny that they have like this like cheesy sitcom, because I do think it was kind of a trope, like when you watch like 90s sitcoms like Full House or like Family Matters or something, there would always be an episode where like someone like has a chimp for whatever reason, and the chimp runs through the house causing havoc or whatever. But whenever you see like a chimp on like those sitcoms or TV show or whatever, it's always a baby chimp. So they always kept probably like look like a little smaller, and the reason is because like once they go through puberty, like
they're strong,
they're vicious. Yeah, they can easily kill you. Like they will literally like rip off your face, or chew off your genitals and stuff. They're extremely vicious, and so I feel like sometimes people have this idea of chimps of being like, oh, these silly little goofy like things you would see on TV, like wearing a diaper or whatever. But no, they're monstrous. And I volunteered at an animal sanctuary out here for a little bit, and they had a section for they were taking care of chimps, and these were ones that were used for like medical research, so they were very rightfully pissed off at humans. But they were the scariest things like I've ever seen. Like when you would walk by them, like they're full grown, so like they're huge, like they look so much bigger than the chimps you would see on TV, and they're like just all muscle, and like you'd walk by and they just like have this like hate in their eyes for like you because you're a human, and they would just walk back and forth like looking at you. And they would have like drills and stuff at the animal sanctuary for like if any animals ever got out, like there would be like you'd have these procedures, be like, oh, like report to this area, hide here or whatever. And I asked one of the like guides there before, like, oh, like what is like what would be the most dangerous or like scariest animal that would get out? And this is a place that had like lions and tigers and bears and stuff, but the guy said like, oh, the chimps, like, man, if the chimps get out, we're screwed. Like just like find somewhere to hide and just pray that that they don't find you, because like they won't have any mercy. So I just thought the that made the Mr. Gordy stuff just particularly effective.
Yeah, I think part of that as well is like having respect for like nature, and like the idea that like the hubris of like, we can control this animal, and like, no, you can't. Like, not really. Not if it decides to act out for whatever reason. Like that's very much, I think, part of the film's message. But there's also the idea that you shouldn't try and control an animal just for
entertainment.
Just for entertainment's sake. If you have to control an animal because like it's in a dangerous place and people are at risk, then you have to have a way to deal with it. But and ultimately that's what has to happen with what did they end up calling it by the end? Like
jean jacket.
Jean jacket. Yeah. Because it's not until late on, but when it's flying around, you can see it rippling a little bit, as if, oh wait, there's like a fabric-y quality to it's not like metal, which obviously, by that point you already know it's a living thing, so you wouldn't necessarily think metal per se, but you would think solid, you would think like a sort of grey flesh or whatever, but then obviously it's more of a fabric, which is why it can open and become this kind of like butterfly-esque thing. And I do like the way the movie kind of like split it up. Like they would have these titles that would be like the horses' names, and then the last one it gives you his jean jacket. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, and then at the end you get Nope in the same title. And Nope there is a moment where someone like says Nope. There's like a this is the movie title moment. It's when OJ's on the way back to the house after he's witnessed part of the UFO eating all the crowd at the theme park show. He's on his way back, and the car breaks down because of the electricity thing that happens with the ship, and he opens the door and just looks up, and it's right above him. He can see the big the hole in the middle of it, and he just closes the door and goes, "Nope."
Yeah.
And it made me laugh, and it's like, it probably would be mildly amusing anyway, but because the title of the movie, I did laugh because it was, oh, there it is. There's the Nope moment.
I thought that was great, but you know what, I don't think I actually noticed it the other two times that I watched it, but they actually do say it like right at the beginning. Actually, when they're doing like the sitcom lines, like one of the very first lines when the movie starts is like, the dad is like saying something like, "Oh, I've got you this watch for your birthday, Mr. Gordy, but I didn't realize you couldn't tell time." And then like the wife says something like, "Gee, you think a scientist that could send a rocket to the moon could get a good birthday gift?" And then like she pauses and she goes, "Nope."
Okay.
So but it's so funny though, because it's like very like, it's not the kind of Nope that like you're thinking for. So like I feel like I totally missed it like the other times that I watched it, but I noticed it this time.
I think that maybe lends itself to the idea that there's multiple meanings behind it. The one that we were talking about with him saying Nope and closing the car door is the one that you thought before you saw the movie. That's the context that will come up. Is someone going, "Nope." Not doing that. It's the Diary DeVito gift from It's Always Sunny. Nope. Not doing that.
And now it makes me think of there's a very good Nope moment in Barbarian too, which I guess we don't really want to spoil, but
that's true. That's right. There's a Nope moment in that. Yeah. Character was being sensible in that scene. It's interesting because it does kind of shift. Like it's very much a monster movie, and because it's treated so much like an animal, even though it's this big spectacular thing, it does kind of almost feel more like an animals attack movie in the last 20 minutes or something like that. It feels like, it almost feels like, you said it's got some horrific moments in it, it's got some tense and scary moments, and I agree with that, but I don't think most of them are towards the end. I think towards the end it's more like a it's more like a Jaws. It's more like a thrilling adventure in the last like 30 minutes. I think all the horror is in like the middle and the early parts of the movie.
Yeah.
When it's the unknown and when you don't know exactly what it is, and the Gordy stuff and the flashbacks and all that. I would also maybe argue this is the most fun of his 3 movies as well. I think it just lends, even though it's scary and tense at a lot of points, it lends itself to just like maybe characters who are a bit more fun and have more wisecracks. It does have something kind of, it's got like a serious message to say, but it's not as like overbearing perhaps as the other two films, which are very kind of hard hitting with their message. This feels a bit more like, no, you can just watch this as like a fun monster movie effectively, and enjoy the tension of that, enjoy the way that plays out, and the characters figuring out the rules and how to fight back and all that stuff, which I love, all that kind of stuff. And then but then it does have the core themes and the ideas to say, and like clinging to legacy, and clinging to legacy is a theme, chasing spectacle for fame and fortune is a theme, and then just a wee like glamorize like disasters as spectacle is also another main theme, which is there, because there's that weird detail during the Gordy stuff where young Stephen Yeun, Ricky, notices like there's a shoe that's just standing up on its tip, and it's like, what the hell does that mean? What's going on? What is this?
It's one of the things I love about Peele, because it's just like, it's just such a striking visual, and I mean, honestly, like if there's a deeper meaning to it, I couldn't really tell you, but I love how much it like stands out to you and makes you like take notice.
The only thing I could think of is that it ties into, at one point, and I think he's talking about his dad dying, OJ, but he mentions, he's talking about, he asks his sister, like, is there such a thing as a bad miracle? Is there a word for that? Because that's okay. And I'm just wondering if like this miraculous thing of the shoe standing up on its tip in the middle of this disaster is, you know, just some sort of random bad miracle where.
That's interesting.
I don't know. It's the only thing I can really think of. In fact, on his name, OJ, we have to. You know, it's only really addressed right at the start when he says his name's OJ, and they go, "Wait, your name's OJ?" And he's like, "Yeah, Otis Jr." The idea, if one of the key themes of this film is the glamorization of tragedies and disasters, then how much of a media spectacle was like the OJ trial and everything that came after that? Like, I feel like that's a very intentional choice to include that.
The big thing before OJ, got caught was that, he had that like, big high speed chase where, he was riding a, I think the car was called like a Bronco, which, is like another name for a horse. And then, later on, you have a chase scene with OJ on a horse, so like some connective tissue there. And
OJ, I mean, he had obviously a successful career before that as a an athlete is the word I was looking for, and an actor.
And actor too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I know him as an actor because I don't know anything about sports, but Naked Gun. Yeah. But he certainly he wrote a book called If I Did It, which probably sold a lot of copies. Like he was definitely milking the cash cow of the spectacle of what he was involved in. And I don't think the movie's trying to compare the main character of OJ to OJ Simpson, because he's obviously not a bad guy, OJ, in the movie. But I think that name and the idea that name is tainted to an extent where immediately someone's like, "Wait, you're called OJ?"
Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting. So
definitely,
yeah. And I guess one of the other things to mention as well, and this is maybe where I think there's maybe like a layer too much onto the movie, because I couldn't quite make this sit with all the other themes at play, but especially since I'm talking about how I think the movie's saying that people shouldn't want it for these reasons, and that's why some of the characters die, and why some of the arcs of the characters that do survive is that they don't chase spectacle by the end for the same reason that they did earlier on, because they've had a character journey. But one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is that this idea that their great-great-grandfather was this man on the horse in the first ever footage, and no one knows his name except them. Like, no one ever knows. Like, they always say, "Hey, do you know who the actor was?" Like, everyone knows who filmed it, and that's a bit of a stretch. Like, I don't know who filmed the first ever footage, but I get why it's in the history books. The idea being that he didn't get the credit that he perhaps should for being like probably the other important person in this very historical moment, this very important moment in cinema history, and the idea that we found this UFO thing, we have to make sure we claim it as ours, and that we are the ones who are remembered for this. The reason why I can't really quite make that fit with like the other themes is that this feels like more of a positive reason, is to say no, we're making sure that we keep this because this our great grandfather, like, he didn't get to keep that legacy effectively, or at least maybe he did at the time, but certainly no one knows who he is now, and there's this idea that no, we want to make sure that we can keep a hold of it. Maybe that's not an intentional part, maybe I'm just sort of looking for something else there, but
that's interesting though.
But I was wondering if that was maybe something else it was going for. But I can't quite make it fit with everything else. So I'll just I'll put it out as a sort of passing thought, and because generally speaking, I think the movie's saying that the characters, by and large, are wrong for chasing the spectacle. It's been critical of that, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, I mean they could have easily like left at any time, and all survived it.
That's true. That said, though, I mean, how many people are going to wander into that area and die? Or maybe the ship will just leave and go somewhere more populated because it gets hungry.
Well, I mean, like, you leave and then you hopefully tell someone that can. Although I don't even know who you would tell. I mean, I imagine it would sound crazy, like going to the police or whatever. But
maybe after the murder of like the 40 people at the show.
Yeah, you think that would?
It would maybe be enough to say, hey, we've got an idea of what's happening here. You'll probably think we sound crazy, but if you start sending people in, you're going to eventually get some evidence. So go for it. Yeah. No, it was a good time. I don't think I was expecting quite a Jaws movie as I got ultimately by the end, but I had fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I was pretty anxious to do that one because I liked it quite a bit, and I figured it'd be an interesting one to talk about. Just
and you thought I'd hate it for some reason?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I thought I was pretty sure you'd be positive on it, but you never know. But just one of those ones though where just the timing was weird, and it's always annoying when that works out.
Okay. Also, apparently Oz Perkins had a small role in this.
Oh. Really?
Is it the Oz Perkins I'm thinking? Yes, it's the Oz Perkins.
Is he the director?
Well, yeah, he was an actor first, but yeah, he directed Black Coat's Daughter,
Gretel
and Hansel. Yeah, he was of course in the classic Quigley, starring Gary Busey, where Gary Busey swaps bodies with a dog. Yeah. He's also in Secretary, which is actually a really good film. The film that 50 Shades of Grey kind of like ripped off.
Of course you like that, you freak.
Shut up. But yeah, it's him. He's there.
We got a little bit of a secretary relationship.
Am I James Spader or am I Gyllenhaal?
Very good question. I'll let the listeners decide.
Yeah, he played Finn Bachman. Was he maybe one of the people at the start in the TV set or something?
Oh, maybe.
I don't know who that. Yeah.
The only other person I can think of that had maybe some lines would be like, like the guy at the beginning that's kind of, like getting the, I don't know what his position would be.
I mean,
unless could he have been maybe the voice of the motorcycle guy possibly, or?
I don't know.
No.
But maybe he had he could have been the dad in the sitcom for all I know. I don't think so. But I mean, I've never seen him with a beard before, so no, I see who that is. That's some other guy named Andrew Ralston. I can see him down here, but regardless, he's apparently got a small role, and I didn't notice him, but he was there somewhere, and that's cool because I like his movies. So
I wonder if they're friends or something.
Yeah. Also, Ren Schmidt played Stephen Yeun's wife in this. She's in For All Mankind, the Apple show.
Oh, I don't watch that.
No, but I recognized her, so I figured I'd mention it before we wrap up, since people be.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably on the edge of their toes, wondering if you're gonna mention it.
Just rate the film, Tim, and shut up.
Yeah, so I've seen it 3 times. I've loved it. Each time, it's a. I don't know. I don't know what to say about Peele at this point. I've loved everything he's done. He has it's only 3 movies, but I mean it's quite the track record for me. It's it's exciting to see what he's gonna do next, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this, it's hard to rank his movies, but like you're saying, this might be your favorite. It could possibly be mine too. Like, I don't know. It's real damn good. I love the actors. The performances are great. There's moments of humor. The movie, even though it is a little long, like it flies by just because it is very, visually, it looks good. There's lots of interesting things that are happening. There's moments of like really just like sheer bleak horror.
Oh yeah, I thought it was paced very well. I thought like it was a slow build to begin with these quick gaudy sequences to kind of space it up, and then. But there's that big thing halfway through that kind of amps everything up, and from that point on, it feels like we're in like major movie territory, and it feels really exciting.
It feels nice to have like, talking about blockbusters. Not to get on a soapbox or anything, but like,
here we go.
It kind of sucks that like that like the number, like mostly when you think of blockbusters now, it's like mostly just like the same old like Marvel movies or comic book movies nowadays. As much as I love Marvel and comic books and stuff, it's nice when you get like movies that feel like kind of like old school blockbusters like this, but they are totally like original, unique ideas. It was nice before, like when you would get a lot of nice original movies all the time, instead of just the same constant remakes and sequels and comic book movies, but whatever. So that being said, I mean, I think this is a great film. I love it. I honestly, I really can't think of like anything to complain about it or to like knock it down any points for me. So I'm just gonna give it the old 10 out of 10. I think.
Whoa!
Yeah, I got nothing I got no complaints. So it's it worked for me. What can I say?
I just a bit promiscuous there with your 10 out of 10s there, Tim. That's all I'm saying. You're dishing them out. That's the second one you've given this year on the show, I think.
Mm-hmm. But to be fair, like it's probably only the like fourth that I've given like out of all the 500 episodes we've done.
That can't be true. You've given more than 4 10s overall.
I don't think whoever's keeping the stats, let me know. But like it's not like I've given like 20 or 30 out. Like
no, but like I mean, I'm pretty sure you gave a 10 to like Phantasm. You'd probably give a 10 to like at least one of the Evil Deads.
Probably.
Like I could, there's probably a few things I could rhyme off that you probably give a 10 to.
I would say it's at least less than 10 though, but I think
sure
it's fun to give 10s though.
as long as you feel it in your heart, it's absolutely fun to give a 10.
You didn't tell me I had to feel it in my heart.
You have to feel it. Yeah, of course you do. I feel every rating I give in my heart.
You might want to see a doctor about that.
Or my ass. Like if it goes below a certain number, it's in my ass.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
It's shit. It's poo. It comes out my anus. Anyway, no.
And it falls and then it hits someone in the head and they die.
Especially when it's a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Get it, number 2. No, okay.
Yeah.
My comedy's lost in you peasants.
Jeez.
All right, now I'm not going to get a 10 because I'm not dishing out 10s willy nilly like 10 Mithy over here. But I really liked it. I think the characters are likable. I think the movie's got a lot of great spectacle and it looks gorgeous numerous times. The entire climax is just a fun ride. And you're genuinely left thinking, oh, maybe we've killed off OJ and we've left with the sister character, but you get that big glorious triumphant moment where he literally appears like he's in a western. Like they set up early on that the first movie he ever worked on with his dad was Scorpion King, which is a terrible movie from 2001, which by the way I'm realizing now that a lot of main characters in movies are around my age. And I'm like, yeah, he was a teenager working with his dad. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he's a couple of years older than me. That sounds about right. Oh, God. What I'm worried about is how long is it going to be before like all the main characters are younger than me. That's where I'm really going to get concerned. But
Yeah, that's what I don't mind so much if they're my age. It's when they're younger that I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. They're younger, but they're not high school kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big triumphant moment in the horse. It feels like he actually shows up at the end as if he just came out of a western, and it's quite uplifting. So, yeah. Plus, it has themes, it has ideas, all that stuff is cooking. It's a good time. I think it's well paced. So. Yeah, I'll give it a 9. 9 out of 10.
Which is like a 10 for you.
No, it's not. I've given things
You
10.
don't give out a lot of 9s.
I've given out a higher rating this year. I gave an 8.5 to something. So, I'm just saying, I'll give out 10s easy. You have to really I have to fall in love with you passionately. That has to speak to me in a way that's just, So anyway, there you go. That's nope. Yes. So hopefully you enjoyed that discussion. So I don't know how you could have, but if you did, thank you. You can support all the content by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and getting some bonus goodies for your effort. Now, admittedly, they're on pause for a bit because Tim's having a second kid and will be away from recording for a while. So we're going to hopefully have a lot of episodes to cover that gap, if not the whole gap, for a couple per month. But we won't have any bonus content for that time. But there's a whole back catalogue of bonus episodes that you get access to. At the $5 tier, there's a show called Even More Screams that we're doing monthly, and we'll do monthly again when Tim comes back. But there's a year worth of that as well you can go check out, where we just talk about all the different horror movies we've been watching, that weren't for the show, as well as the bonus episodes, which tend to be goofier movies and B movies and shit like Thanksgiving and whatever else. There's the occasional serious movie, but it's mostly goofy stuff.
Yeah.
So go check out all that. You can of course support us by liking, subscribing, dinging the bell. Alternatively, there's a YouTube membership and super chats and things like that, or super thanks if you want to use those. But I will thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess and the Palacios, David Short, Bordner, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Al Treisman. Thank you to you all for supporting us at a high tier. But thank you to everyone who does support the show and keep enjoying said content. Check out the other stuff that we do at Mail Fuzz Movies, like the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the sci-fi podcast that I do with Tara, or the Collector's Cut, the newer movie show that I do with David, which is about going through franchises and sort of batches of movies. We're doing a 70s disaster season that's probably coming out right now as this episode comes out, and other stuff. We got Turtles movies coming up, so go check out that. But that's us. That's been Screams After Midnight. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.